So please help me welcome to the stage, Gary. You both get to sit down, please, have a seat. Oh, on the side. That's like the cameraman now hates you.
That's okay.
So we'll go over to the side and you're actually right in the direct line of the questions as well. So as the cameraman looks at you, he gets to look at the questions as well, which are also in front of you here. So as I said, we did start out with some questions on Twitter, and a very interesting person wrote back. The very first question that we got was from somebody who's called John Moo from Twitter. And he says, "Who are you really?" I don't understand the joke behind this, but I guess that there's some...
There's a misconception that I might be a large language model.
Oh, I see. So you don't actually exist.
I don't actually exist. I'm just like a meat bag with an LLM inside.
I mean, it's an interesting concept. I've never met an LLM in person before, so very nice to meet you.
Oh, I'm not saying I said that's the misconception.
Well, I'm glad you're not an LLM. My younger brother's a mathematician, and he and I argue vociferously about what AI really is and isn't. But we do have a lot of questions from the audience, as well as from Twitter. So thank you, John, wherever you are. And the top one that's been voted top, 19 people voted this top, is something probably weighing on the minds of SEOs and non-SEOs alike, and probably every recipe author out there ever, which is, are Google planning to release some authorship sooner or later, something that goes back to that old authorship?
I don't know of such plans. And honestly, I'm not very excited about anything along those lines, especially not one that is similar to what we had back in 2011 to 2013, because pretty much any markup that SEOs and site owners have access to will be in some form spammed.
Thank you. We love you too.
And generally, they are not good signals. That's why rel canonical, for example, is not a directive, but a hint. That's why meta description is not a directive, but something that we might consider, and so on. Having something similar for authorship, I think, would be a mistake. If it's algorithmically determined, then perhaps it would be more accurate or could be higher accuracy. But honestly, I don't necessarily see the value in it.
I've seen canonical done badly a lot of times myself, so I'm glad to hear that it is only a suggestion rather than a rule.
I mean, it's a strong suggestion, but still, it's a suggestion.
Like Pirates of the Caribbean, the more set of guidelines than actual rules.
Yes.
Very interesting. Something that has zipped up to the top. What is the future of organic? Will there be organic SEO in 5 years? Short timeline, but it is a question on a lot of people's minds.
I will say yes. And I don't see organic SEO changing that much in 5 years' time. There might be new features that are launching that will change some part of the game, but not so drastically that SEO would die, because basically that's the question, right?
Are our jobs safe is what the question is, I guess.
I think SEO is, well, it depends on the kind of SEO that people are doing, because there is one kind of SEO that I don't appreciate, and they don't appreciate us either, especially since February, as far as I understand. But on the flip side, I also wouldn't call them SEOs.
Yeah.
So there's that.
And they're not even good enough to be called pirates. So why does 301 redirects from one domain to another seemingly, maybe not necessarily, but seemingly no longer work? The example that's been given is actually the really interesting migration recently of Woo from woocommerce.com to woo.com. So the perception here that it's created is that redirects from one domain to another don't work. Is that a myth?
I would say it's a myth. It's not something that we would like. If we had changed that, then we would be very loud about it. Because the 301s are basically an internet standard. It's not something that we came up with. It was way before Google even existed that it came to be. And it's a very reliable signal that tells us that A moved to B. There's no way we would change how we read that signal and how we treat that signal without actually communicating more about it. So my thinking is that there was something else going on that might have rendered the site migration useless, I guess.
Somebody accidentally left a no index on or something.
Something, yeah. And the other thing is that when something is broken in our own algorithms, especially something big like this, like we are not respecting 301s anymore, then we hear a lot of noise about it. A lot. Basically, my LinkedIn inbox would be filled with these kind of complaints. And honestly, this is the first time I heard about it. So I don't think that we have a problem. I could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. But on the flip side, I also don't see that we would have broken this.
Yeah. So
this contract that we have with
it's a misconception that
yeah.
301s no longer work. There was probably something that went wrong in the migration, but 301s still do work. And for anyone wondering about the internet standards, they're requests for comments, and you can look them up online. They're totally published. They're not hidden. They're not buried deep in Google documentation. They're public. Requests for comments are out there. Any of you can look at them. They're what drives the internet and what's make sure that we can communicate on the internet system to system.
Yeah. One interesting thing is that, going back to WooCommerce, is that we do have this concept of alternate names that sometimes we show in search results when we think that the person is looking for the old domain, not for the new one. That doesn't mean that the migration didn't complete or was not successful. It just means that people are still looking for, in that case, well, not in that case,
WooCommerce.com versus woo.com.
Woo.com. And then we would, for a time, we would prefer to show WooCommerce.com to users just to ensure that they know where are they going.
Just because they might not realize woo.com is actually WooCommerce.
Yeah.
So you're being helpful as a system and trying to help and assist people who might not be familiar with this sudden change. Oh, it's such a nice thought. I don't think so. Your hearts are always in the right place, right? But sometimes we feel like...
It's mighty nice of you that you think we have a heart, but...
Well, I always like to err on the side of being nice, right? We all err on the side of being nice and assuming the best of people. I hope, all of you. Otherwise, I'm going to hunt you down and kill you. It's one or the other.
That escalated fast.
It always, with me, always escalates quickly. So the next question from our audience, it has, 19 upvotes at the moment, says, can crawled, and this actually came from the internet, can crawled but not indexed be a result of a page being too similar to other stuff already indexed? So is Google suggesting there is enough other stuff already and your stuff is not unique enough?
Yes, that could be one thing that it can mean. Crawled but not indexed is, ideally we would break up that category into more granular chunks, but it's super hard because of how the data internally exists. It can be a bunch of things. Dupe elimination is one of those things where we crawled the page and then we decided to not index it because there's already a version of that or an extremely similar version of that content available in our index. And it has better signals. I forgot what was the other thing that I wanted to say. But yeah, but it can be, it could be multiple things.
Yeah, and I know that there's discovered but not crawled, and then there's crawled but not indexed. So at the point at which you're crawled, Google knows what's on the page. It's making a decision about what's on the page, whereas discovered, not crawled, there's different things going on there. So it's very important for new SEOs that are just coming in when they're looking at Google Search Console to understand that Google, not you personally, but you as a representative of Google, are trying to tell us different things about the website.
Yeah. And in general, also the general quality of the site, that can matter a lot of how many of these crawled but not indexed you see in Search Console. If the number of these URLs is very high, that could hint at like general quality issues. And I've seen that a lot since February, where suddenly we just decided that we are de-indexing a vast amount of URLs on a site just because the perception or our perception of the site has changed.
So after February, there's a possibility that things could have changed in Google Search Console as well because your perception, not you personally, but Google's perception of the site has actually fundamentally changed.
So Search Console is using the data that Google indexing and Google ranking or Google serving produces, right? And then it's distilling that data into something that is intelligible by me or by you or by anyone else, because the raw data that just doesn't make any sense to us as humans. And like one possibility is that when you see that number rising, that the perception of the or Google's perception of the site has changed. Like that could be one thing, but then it could also be that there was an error, for example, on the site, and then it served the same exact page to every single URL on the site. That could also be one of those, one of the reasons that you see that number climbing. So yeah, there could be many things. In the vast majority of the cases, it's a technical thing.
That actually, it's not as highly voted, but it's something that I see in JavaScript sites where they're building the page on the fly, and Google comes along, and these pages are not pre-rendered. They're not pre-anything. Google pops along, and unfortunately, it's a little bit of a slow day. Maybe it's a Friday, maybe it's a Sunday morning. It's had too much to drink Saturday night, and the site is just a little bit slow, and Google's like, well, I'm coming along now. And unfortunately, the site's rendering what looks like the same page over and over because it's just not pulled from the database fast enough. So for something like that, I can understand that all of a sudden Google sees the same page. We didn't mean it, but when we're building JavaScript-heavy sites, or when we're building sites that I mean, I used to hand code in HTML, but I'm very, very old, as you can probably tell from the gray.
Good old days.
I miss those days. A little bit of notepad, some typing, no mouse. It's all fun. But the next one of these questions that was upvoted was how Google is working with improving how they're actually spidering and then indexing JavaScript-heavy sites, because that's a challenge.
I mean, we are generally not.
You heard it here first, folks.
So the thing is that rendering at one point switched to the stable version of Chromium, I want to say. And at that point, it was basically a done deal. Like we don't have to do much with rendering specifically. It's all handled by Chromium itself. And I don't think that MO has changed since we switched to Chromium. We might have made some minor changes to ensure that we are consuming JavaScript-heavy sites easier, but we are not actively investing in improving indexing JavaScript-heavy sites, because we consider it as basically a done deal. And if we see a bug, then we would fix it. But otherwise, it's like
So it's you're working the way that you've worked.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. It's stability. It's you know what to what to get.
Right, but like if it works, like we don't see.
If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah, and there's no better thing to switch to right now, right? Like if it was something better, like there would be a Chromium 2 or a Bingus Maximus or whatever, then we might switch to that new engine to power the rendering. But like, why touch it if it's actually not broken and it's doing his job?
It's it's a solid piece of advice. If it's not broke, don't try to fix it, because then you just break it and then you try to fix it and it doesn't fix the way it was before. Ever. I've taken apart too many transistor radios as a kid, never put them back together the same way. One of the now top voted questions is, given the rise of AI generated content on the web, do you anticipate Google implementing like an AI generated tag? Not necessarily for the SERPs. This is for the SERPs, because the SERPs don't have a sponsored tag, but for the website itself, where we've got like a sponsored tag for a link where somebody's like rel equals sponsored, rel equals no follow, etc., etc. And there's no such thing as a do follow tag, just putting it out there.
Well, technically there is, but then you might also replace it with 6 o'clock.
Yeah, well.
So anyway, whatever helps users.
It's going to help me sleep tonight to believe that.
So we don't have a beef with AI-generated content. Like, our beef is not with AI-generated content. The problem is with the quality of the content that was generated by AI. And I don't think that having a label would help much with anything, really. If the quality of the underlying pages is high, like if it was reviewed by some editors or whoever, some expert that actually knows their stuff about the topic that the page is about, I don't see a problem with AI-generated content. And in fact, like, we had machine-generated content since forever on sports sites, for example.
It's true.
Like, because they were consuming the content, like these sports sites, they were consuming the content, the raw data from NFL.com or whatever, or NFL feeds, and then making that data make sense to readers, which meant that they put it in a pseudo template and then presented that to the users. And it worked. And financial sites can do the same thing. Like, when I look on interactive brokers or iShares on the raw data, it's just like, what the shit? Like, I don't understand anything from this. But then if I go to, I will say something stupid, blabla.com, which is a financial site, let's say, and they interpreted that data using AI or some templating system or whatever for me, and I can read it in a as if it was written for a human. Then suddenly it's like, oh, that's what it means. I say, why didn't you just say so?
I understand you.
Yeah, so I think there's no real problem with AI-generated content. There is problem with people not reviewing what the AI generating or the software is spitting out, and just publishing junk.
Yeah.
And that is a problem.
The best example of which is probably the book on mushrooms, which
what now?
There was a book on mushrooms that was all AI written, and it turned out it recommended harvesting and eating a mushroom that would kill you. So, yeah.
Oh, there was also a supermarket in New Zealand that came up with this idea that they will generate recipes. And then one of the ingredients was bleach.
Oh, tasty. Well, we all know what certain people think about bleach and certain viruses. It will clean you out, but not in a good way. Please don't use bleach in your food. It's probably not healthy. It is actually not healthy, but
I like that you said probably first time.
Well, maybe, I don't know, in a 0.0001% dilution, maybe it won't kill you.
And it's healthy?
No, I don't think it's healthy.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't necessarily feel that broccoli is as healthy as people seem to want to tell me it is. Right, so I have to find this one because this is no longer updating in order. But as everyone in the room can see, the top question here says, since Reddit and big publishers dominate nowadays in the SERPs for many keywords, and this has come from the audience, what can the smaller brands do besides targeting the long tail keywords?
If I wanted to get back into this, so before I joined Google, I was doing some SEO stuff for big publishers.
Ooh.
So,
SEO type
well,
stuff?
like I was also a server manager, like a cluster manager. So
Okay. So it's not that you were being like a black hat, sort of using some Mad Lib.
let's not go there. Let's not go there. So I would have had the same questions, and in fact, back in the days, we saw these kind of questions all the time. Now it's Reddit. Back then, it was Amazon. A few years before that, it was, I think, Friendster was all over the place.
About.com.
About.com.
That's
a big
really
one.
old.
But pretty much every 2 years, the name that you would put there after the since word changes, and it seems that people always figure out ways to compete with whoever would be the second word on in that question. So it's not like, oh my god, like everything sucks now and we can retire. It's like, one thing you could do is to wait it out and let someone else come up with something for you that you can use to compete with the Reddit and big publishers that allegedly dominate nowadays, SERPs. Or you sit down and you start thinking about how can you employ some marketing strategies that will boost you to around the same positions as the big publishers and Reddit and whatnot. One of the most inspiring presentations I've seen was the empathetic marketing. Do that. Like, find a way to compete with these positions in SERP, because it is possible. You just have to find the angle to compete with them. And it's also, the other thing is that, like, saying that you are left with the long tail keywords, it's like we see like 15 to even more % of new long tail keywords every single day. There's lots of traffic in long tail keywords. You can jump on that bandwagon and capture a ton of traffic.
Yeah, don't diss the long tail.
Yeah.
That's where one of my clients makes a lot of their money, and they're up against Amazon. So if they're able to do it, you're able to do it as well. It doesn't take, it just takes marketing effort, right?
Yeah.
So there's actually, I'm really curious about the SGE in Europe. So I'm gonna pop that one up above the negative SEO, because I'm sure that a lot of people in the audience here, being from Europe and in the various different countries around Eastern and Western Europe, will be curious about when SGE is being released for everybody.
The easy answer from my side is that I don't know. The more in-depth answer is that basically when the stars are aligned just right. With every launch, we have to navigate a ton of mines on a very large minefield in every single country. And we have to figure out when and if it's even possible to launch certain features to a larger audience. When we figure it out, then we are going to launch it. When that happens, it depends on way too many things to list. Some of them can be PR related, some of them can be marketing related, some of them can be legal related. government policies related. There's way too many things that companies at our scale have to consider before launching stuff.
Because if you break, or you break for a country, then it's huge. It's not just news. People lose businesses.
Well, it's not just that, but if like a country hits us with a fine for releasing something, that we don't particularly like it.
I was thinking about the small people, not your fines and finances.
Oh, right, empathy. Wait, right, small people.
Small people, yes, the little people. So basically what you're saying is there are so many factors that go into releasing something like SGE.
Yeah.
It's really difficult for you to say when it's able to be released in Europe. It's not that you're holding back or anything like that. It's just you're being careful.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like changing, for example, the title link's color, that's like whatever. Like we can do it whenever we want because like maybe people will not like it and we lose, I don't know, like 1 billion clicks.
Wow.
It's like whatever. But if we launch SG and that renders the search result page useless for half of Europe, it's like,
it's a big problem. Yes. So with 23 upvotes, I guess it's an not easy, but probably a straightforward question to answer. And it gets asked a lot. It's been asked for many, 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 many years. And I know that Google has done a lot of work in this area over many years, at least the past decade, if not longer, about whether or not it is still possible to perform negative SEO. So does negative SEO via spammy link building, so a competitor throwing tens of thousands of links at another competitor, does that kind of thing still harm people? Or has Google kind of pushed that off to the side?
Do you remember Penguin?
Do I remember Penguin? Yeah, they're also a delicious biscuit covered in chocolate in the UK, but I also remember the pain of Penguin.
Around the time we released Penguin, there was tons and tons of complaints about negative SEO, specifically link-based negative SEO. And then very unsmartly, I requested examples, like show me how it works and show me that it worked. And then I got hundreds, literally hundreds of examples of alleged negative SEO. And all of them were not negative SEO. It was always something that was so far away from negative SEO that I didn't even bother looking further, except one that I sent to the web spam team for double checking, and that we haven't made up our mind about it, but that could have been negative SEO. With this, I want to say that the fear about negative SEO is much bigger than, or much larger than it needs to be. We disable an insane number of links. We need very few links to rank pages. And what?
I like that. We need very few links to rank pages. Everybody in the audience is now like, yes, I can stop building those mummy blogger links.
What? No, but like, I remember that around when I joined, links were extremely important. We over the years we made links less and less important to make sure that people are not spamming it too much, at least. And I think now we are at a stage where we need very few, but again, at our scale, very few links. That might still mean
mummy blogger links,
a buttload of links. But it's certainly possible that you can rank even in competitive niches without or very, very, very few links. If the negative SEO idea is coming from, or in this case, the negative SEO idea is coming from links like Pornhub.com and similar. Well, actually, Pornhub is not that shady.
And also, if you're in the porn industry and you're getting links from a porn site, those are valuable because they'll end up in a click anyway. So they'll make you money or whatever you're trying to get out of the link. You're not, it's a relevant contextual link if you're in the porn industry. If you're selling flowers, it might still be relevant. If you're a motorcycle mechanic site, it might not be as relevant. Might.
Rule 34.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, let's move away from porn. If you see links from completely irrelevant sites, be that porn sites or pure spam sites or whatever, you can safely assume that we disable the links from those sites, because one of the things is that we try to match the topic, let's say, of the target page plus the whoever is linking out. And if they don't match, then why on earth would we use those links? Like, for example, if someone is linking to your flower page from a Canadian casino that sells Viagra without prescription, then why would we trust that link?
I can think of a reason why you would want to be linking to flowers if you're, a Viagra site, because maybe you want to.
But it's a Canadian casino site.
Well, but then you're gambling with your health.
Oh boy.
As a Canadian, I can come up with any relationship.
Oh, Canada.
So, negative SEO by links, we can safely say.
I would say that I would not worry about it. Like, find something else to worry about it.
There are lots of other things that we can worry about on our websites, like accidentally canonicalling everything to the homepage.
That's not smart.
It was painful when I saw that done to a friend. It was really bad. So the next one on the list, but for some reason it's not updating here, is how does Google, and this is actually, I believe, from the internet, how does Google start and then translate understanding a query? Does it sort of do the query, translate the query from Portuguese to English, and then translate back into Portuguese, and then look for a result? Or is there does it translate everything into English, look for it in English, but with a Portuguese flag, and then deliver that as a result? It's all about whether Google is doing something differently in one language versus another.
No. Pretty much all languages, well, kind of, but I will elaborate.
No, kind of, but maybe.
Classified. So the posit here is it doesn't match reality. Like, we are not doing translations for the query because there's no point. Like, we generally don't want to serve you Portuguese results when you are searching in English. Like, well,
makes sense. If you're in let's say if you're in the UK searching in English, that on a search that has nothing to do with Portugal, you don't want to get Portuguese results. 100%, 85%.
Right. The rest is porn.
Might be.
So there's just no reason for us to do it. The special things, and we don't do special things for any language except I think 4 of them, where the language is not segmented. So the return language is not segmented. Like, for example, in Chinese, you are writing the characters one after the other without space.
Yep.
Like, you can't possibly have a search index for those complete strings. You have to split that up in multiple logical segments, like, let's say, words, and then search separately for all those things. Same goes for Korean, same goes for Japanese, and same goes for Thai, because Thai is also one of those horrible languages.
They're not horrible languages. They're difficult to machine understand.
Thai is a horrible language, sorry.
No tea, no shade on the Thai people.
I love Mandarin, I love Japanese. Thai is like Oh my God. But other than these segmenting, we are not doing anything special.
Okay.
There is a parenthesis which might have prompted this question, is the translated results. But there we don't actually translate the query, we translate the result for the user. The query still stays the same as the user put it in the search box.
So if I'm in Bulgaria, but searching in English, but something matches with a Bulgarian website that's written in Bulgarian, and I've chosen to translate the page, you're just doing the translation. You're not necessarily, and you've been like, well, your query matched this page, so we're giving it to you, but it's in Bulgarian, so here's some translation.
I don't think it would work in Bulgaria. It's more targeted to languages where people struggle with the script and the language, like, for example, Hindi India.
Okay.
Or Hinglish India, actually.
Hinglish in India. I can believe that. So it's still not updating. No, it's still not updating. So that was the translation one. And here, the next one with 14 votes is how important is crawl budget when dealing with big websites like 10 million plus pages?
That's where I would start thinking about crawl budget. Like anything below that, I would probably not bother too much.
So like 6 million pages is okay, but at 10 million, you're saying that's probably the tipping point? I only ask because I might have a client that has 6 million pages.
I would say
that was my question, though.
It's 9,900,000.
9,900,998?
Yes, exactly.
There you go. You've got your number now. You don't have to worry about crawl budget below that.
The idea is that, okay, stepping back. So when you have one of those big sites, you probably want to have enough server capacity.
Yes.
Many sites don't have, and then you probably would need to think about crawl budget, but from a different perspective, which is like, will my site crash if I allow more than one crawler on my site? But then you probably shouldn't have that big of a site. You should probably put more servers in your cluster. And then you have a site like, I don't know, in Switzerland, we have Galaxus, which is an e-commerce site. They have probably hundreds of millions of pages. They have a very large cluster, server cluster that's powering the site. They can handle a lot of crawl, but then every now and then we see that we are wasting crawl on certain sections of the site, like category pages that are being over-filtered, like filter by color, filter by material, filter by producer or manufacturer, and then a combination of these. And then we are just like, okay, now we spend one day just crawling this one category page because of all this. And those are the things that you want to fix on your site and somehow ensure that crawlers in general, not just Google or Googlebot, cannot do that. Basically iterate the search operators to, or the query parameters to trigger different sets of the or different orders, different lists of the same set of products.
Right.
And recently we answered a question in an office hour about this, and the user was asking, or the site owner was asking, or SEO, whether they can use something Ajaxy to change the page to avoid exactly this, like that Googlebot spends 2 years scrolling one category page. And the idea was that they put the query parameters after a fragment in the URL.
Yep.
Because fragments only ever exist on the client side. They never travel to the server, which means that we would never actually see those fragments.
A fragment being that hash sign.
The me too. And then if we can't crawl those, then we will have time to spend on other parts of the site.
Mm.
And when you have 10 million pages or 999 million, oh, no, wait, 9 million.
9,998,000.
Yes, correct. Then you probably want to think about that, like, where are we spending our time, and find the most important pages for you that probably, which would be the pages that you can convert easily to send users and Googlebot to.
Excellent. Very, very good answer. Thank you very much for that, because I think although not everybody is going to have a 9,998,000 page site, there are some people out there that are going to be struggling with crawls and with serving Google too many things in a category. So I can understand that that would be very difficult. There were over 50 questions that came through that I wasn't able to get through in moderation as well, and another 20 that we didn't actually answer. If people have more questions, do they at John Moo? Is
Yes.
that on Twitter?
So you go on Twitter
At John
X and at John Moo, and
get through to you. No.
and he will answer all your questions.
Maybe be polite to him and nice, and he will help you if you have big questions. Is there a way? Are you available? Webmaster forums?
Webmaster, that's sexist. I'm on LinkedIn every now and then, but as Patrick Socks figured out, I'm not actually reading anything on. Did I say Facebook?
You said LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Okay.
Are you reading Facebook? Oh,
no.
Hot tip: you're not reading Facebook. You're occasionally reading LinkedIn. You're not on X at all. I mean, you have an at method, but
people send me to X, as in like, hey, have you seen this on X?
Yeah.
And then I would be like, I don't want to go there. It's like, no, you have to go there to see that. Oh, okay.
But if because we have a large audience here and like
LinkedIn is the place where I hang out, if I hang out somewhere on the internet.
Yeah. Okay. So if any of you have burning questions that you're desperate, you can take the chance.
At John Moo.
You can at John Moo on Twitter, or you can LinkedIn Gary directly. And I apologize to John Mueller if he's going to be deluged. But please, everyone, give a warm thank you of applause to Gary.
And thank you for staying. It's Friday, and I have no idea what you're doing here.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for being a part of our panel.
We got a very interesting request by Nicole.
Oh, did we?
It was like, would Gary be able to very quickly answer these two questions?
These two.
What is your opinion about Parasite SEO, and what do you plan to do against it?
What is your opinion about Parasite, and what do you plan to do against it? So we already started doing stuff against Parasite SEO. Parasite SEO is when let's not call it SEO. When spammers rent out subdomains or subdirectories of highly authoritative sites, and then they will hope that that will help them rank better with their trap, usually. We are already doing stuff, and if I remember correctly, the February update was actually focusing on, or partly was focusing on Parasite SEO.
Fabulous. That's
and also some manual actions that we are doing that should help with that. Plus, before that, we had another mechanism that we employed and disabled quite a few of these websites. And then what would be the changes around the Gemini? I'm assuming it's not about the astrology.
Well, we were wondering if you would be able to slightly move the planets, because I don't think that constellation is as attractive as mine, Aries. There are 3 whole stars for Aries.
So Gemini is not search. So I can't speak for them. But around SG, you can see that it's being iterated a lot, like it's changing a lot. And I would expect that it's going to change a lot over the years. And in general, for LLMs, I may the odds ever be in our favor, because it's
because it's the Hunger Games out there, isn't it?
Now it's just Hunger Games.
You sound very positive about it.
Thank
you so
you.
much.